Welcome back. The doctor is in. Today, I'm talking about my first fiction sale for the BattleTech game universe. It was a novella called The Marshal Way. It was published in 4 parts on the Battlecore website in 2013. What I thought I'd do is cover how I went about writing the story and how I managed to get it into a shape good enough to sell. I first wrote this for NaNoWriMo. If you know what National Novel Writing Month is, it's a program that runs through the month of November in which everyone who enters attempts to write a novel in 30 days, and the novel needs to be 50,000 words. When I wrote The Marshal Way, I got it to that length. It was 51,000 or so, and I was pretty happy with it. I sent it out to a few of my friends whose opinions I trusted, and the verdict that they brought back to me was that the first few chapters were too slow. I was spending too much time introducing characters rather than having any action of any sort take place. So I cut a few chapters out, I kept the necessary parts and merged them into later portions of the story, and I ended up with a story that was about 40,000 words. Just shy. It was about 38,000, I think, which put it in the novella category. And even though I did that, I put the story aside and I let it percolate for a while before I came back to it about a year later. And that's when I felt I'd been away from the story for long enough that I could look at it with fresh eyes and give it a fair evaluation. I gave it a fairly hard edit. I spoke with the editor of the Battlecore site, and he said, even though I gave it one hard edit, that I should probably give it another and then maybe another before I sent it to him. I took his advice, and in 2012, I sent it to him. In fact, I sent it to him in August of 2012. Or no, I'm sorry, I sent it to him in July. He got back to me in August. We spoke about it at Gen Con, I believe, and then he got back to me after Gen Con that year. And after he read it, I'm going to read part of his email. He wrote, "All right, there's a lot I like and a lot I don't, but I suspect most of the bits I dislike don't really matter. It's a bit too Wild West for me, but I'm not going to ask you to change it because that's me and everyone else will probably love it." Then he asked me to give it another hard edit, to work on some formatting issues, to trim some of the formatting bits that I added in. And then he told me to send it back to him, and that he wanted to cut it probably into 3 pieces. It ended up being cut into 4. And so that became my first fiction sale of any kind outside of sourcebook work. And I was elated. It had taken me quite some time. Battlecore opened in 2004, and I had been periodically sending stories, and all of them had been handily rejected, so this was a very big deal for me. And I was inordinately proud to have managed finally to sell a story. And the fact that I was able to do it with the first novel that I completed on NaNoWriMo, even though editing trimmed it below novel length, it still showed me the value of the pursuit, the very attempt of trying to write something of that length really matured me as a fiction writer. And afterwards, I managed to make other additional sales of fiction. What I would like to do, and while I made the sale essentially in August of 2012, it did not get published until June of 2013. There are simple realities of publishing. Battlecore only published online, and they needed to space out their publications to make sure that they had enough material for subscribers. And obviously I wasn't the only one selling a story. They needed to publish stories so that every week, I believe they needed to meet a specific word count for subscribers. Since I was giving them essentially 40,000 words, they were going to split that up, and that would allow them to meet the subscription requirement for several weeks. So what I thought I'd do is I'd just mention a little bit. The story is about a quick reaction force in the colonial marshals. If you've watched my other videos, you know that I wrote a lot of the periphery material for several years in various source books, and that included the colonial marshals of the Franc Reaches. I really became attached to that area of space because I had done so much background creation and naming characters and places and trying to shape a storyline for that region of space. It seemed natural to me to choose that as the region to try to write in. Since no one else was really writing anything taking place in that region of space, that also set me apart from people who might want to write stories set on New Avalon or Luthien or any of the other national capitals or the major hotspots. Wanted to find a corner that hadn't been trodden on nearly so much so that I could set myself apart. The story deals with this quick reaction force and a new recruit that they have snagged out of the fresh graduate pool from the Marshalry Academy. And what happens is you meet the new candidate as he's going through his exit interview from the academy. That's when he finds out what his assignment will be. He kind of gets read the riot act because he's got a little bit too much idealism. And on his first mission with the Quick Reaction Force, they respond to a pirate attack on one of their worlds, but they get there too late to prevent the pirates from making off with a number of captives. Well, these pirates are intending to sell these people into servitude, and it's up to the marshals to go get them back. Once they track down where the pirates go in later parts, then they have to try to go and find the people who hired the pirates, and all manner of additional conflicts follow on. And what really comes about is the commander of the Quick Reaction Force, along with this new recruit, end up bonding as they try to save their fellow citizens and stay alive in the process. And this being BattleTech, there's some battle mech fights, there's some combat outside of their battle mechs, all to support the story. And that I touched on this in a previous video. There are various tropes that you want to hit when you're writing for BattleTech. You need to have battle mech combat. That's the central focus of the universe. While there is fiction that gets by without battle mech combat, without depicting mech warriors in the cockpit, you really need an interesting hook to sell a story that lacks that aspect. Because I was covering a region of space that is essentially like the Wild West in space, I was able to get away with that by focusing more on the gunfighting aspects for the later battles that I mentioned. That's not to say it's going to work on every planet in the inner sphere or the periphery, but for this story it worked very well because that's essentially the milieu that the colonial marshals occupy. Anyway, I might do a bit of a reading in another video, but for now I just wanted to talk about how I went about making this sale. It's about persistence sometimes until you find the right note and you find the right atmosphere and the right story to tell. Some people get it right away. It took me a while. If you don't get it right away, don't let that get you down. You've got to keep trying, especially if it matters to you. As a writer, you have to expect that rejections will come. Even Isaac Asimov, after he won Nebulas and Hugo Awards, he would still have stories rejected. even when people requested a story, there were times that they rejected what he delivered them because it wasn't right. So you can't take it personally. You have to try to be professional and understand that it's not about you, it's about the story matching the publication. So that's all I'm going to say for right now. I will simply say that I've since moved on to writing fiction in my own settings. My newest book came out 6 weeks or so ago. It's called Cats of War 2. This is a collection of military fantasy and military science fiction with a feline twist. It's 4 brand new stories. I hope you'll check it out. I'm really proud of it. If you do give it a look, please let me know what you think. And for now, the Doctor is out.